Stop right now. There is a pattern in history that has destroyed three global superpowers in the last 500 years. And right now, in 2025, the United States is following that exact same script, stage by stage, decision by decision. It is not a coincidence. It is a deadly mathematical sequence. Think about the scale of these losses. Spain, 1590, the richest empire on earth. They controlled half the world's gold and silver. Their currency dominated Europe. Yet, they were bankrupt and irrelevant within 80 years. Britain, 1914, the largest empire in history. The pound was the undisputed global reserve currency. The empire collapsed within 40 years. Soviet Union, 1991, a nuclear superpower, the world's other great pole of influence. It ceased to exist in 900 days, not from war, not from a military invasion, but from a catastrophic internal economic implosion. 3 times. 3 superpowers. 3 complete collapses, all following the exact same 7-stage sequence. And here is the terrifying truth we must confront. The United States has already completed 5 of the 7 stages. We are not approaching the pattern, we are deep inside it. This is the story of how empires die, why they always think they're different, and why the math says we're next. We need to throw away the Hollywood version of imperial collapse. It doesn't start with invasion. It starts with economic exhaustion. The empire extends itself far beyond its capacity to maintain itself. This means setting up military bases into 150 countries, fighting costly wars on multiple fronts, making social promises it cannot keep, and racking up debt it cannot repay. Initially, the decline is almost invisible. The currency still works, the military still wins battles, and the government still makes grand promises. But beneath the surface, the foundation is cracking. Resources are misallocated, productive capacity shrinks, and the best and brightest leave. Then comes the acceleration, the tipping point where advantages turn into vulnerabilities. Your currency, once demanded by everyone, starts coming flooding back home. Your military, which is spread across the world, suddenly becomes unsustainable and too thin. The promises once guaranteed by strength become empty words. Every single one of these empires made the same fundamental mistakes. They believed their power was permanent. They overextended militarily. They debased their currency, and they refused to accept reality until it was far too late. Let's trace the blueprint, starting with Spain. By 1600, Spanish galleons were bringing home over 400 tons of silver annually. This wealth controlled Europe's money supply. The Spanish real was the global reserve currency. They walked right into the trap. Stage 1. Military overextension. King Philip spent money fighting wars on 4 continents simultaneously, against the Ottomans, France, England, and rebels in the Netherlands. The cost was staggering. Half of Spain's revenue went to the military. Stage 2. Currency debasement. When taxes failed to cover the cost of war, the Spanish crown did the unforgivable. They debased the currency. They started mixing copper into silver coins. A coin that should have been pure silver became 75% copper. The face value stayed the same, but the real value plummeted, causing inflation to explode. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Spain borrowed constantly from bankers across Europe. They declared bankruptcy 4 times in 40 years, in 1557, 1560, 1575, and 1596. They defaulted, restructured, and then borrowed even more. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. This is the twist. Having all the gold and silver in the world destroyed them. Why produce when you can import? Manufacturing declined, agriculture stagnated, and Spanish wealth flowed right back out to pay for French wine, Italian silk, and Dutch goods. Spain became a mere conduit. Wealth flowed through them, but none of it stayed. They became entirely dependent on imports. Stage 5. Social decay. The failure of the economy led to crime exploding and beggars filling the streets. Productive citizens emigrated, leaving Spain with bureaucrats, soldiers, and priests, people consuming wealth, not creating it. By 1700, the Spanish Empire was economically dead. They went from the world's superpower to a regional country in less than a century. Fast forward 300 years to Britain, the empire where the sun never set. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. They believed their permanence was guaranteed. Stage 1. Military overextension. Britain had commitments on 6 continents. When World War I struck, Britain chose to fight, plunging the empire into catastrophic debt. World War I cost Britain over $1 trillion in today's money. The ultimate blow, they borrowed heavily from the United States. The creditor had become the debtor. Stage 2. Currency debasement. The war drained Britain's gold reserves. In 1925, they tried to restore credibility by returning to the gold standard, but at an overvalued rate. This crushed their exports and manufacturing capacity. They couldn't maintain the pretense. In 1931, Britain abandoned the gold standard, and the pound lost 25% of its value overnight. The global reserve currency had just admitted it couldn't keep its promise. Stage 3. Debt spiral. They never recovered from World War I debt before World War II started, adding another $120 billion in costs. By 1945, Britain owed the US and Canada more than its entire GDP. The empire was too poor to maintain itself. Stage 4. Loss of empire. The crown jewel, India, was surrendered in 1947. The rest of Africa, the Middle East, and Asia followed in 20 years. Stage 5. Currency collapse. The pound kept falling dramatically. From nearly $5 in the 1940s, it fell to $2.80, then $2.40. Today, it is barely $1.27. Britain was relegated to a museum of what used to be great. The Soviet Union emerged from World War II believing communism was the future. They were a superpower with immense military might. But the economic foundations were rotten. Stage 1. Military overextension. The USSR was forced to counter American influence everywhere, from Cuba to Afghanistan. They spent 15% to 20% of GDP on the military, a staggering amount, triple what America spent. The cost was unsustainable, given their smaller, inefficient economy. Stage 2. Economic stagnation. Central planning guaranteed stagnation. By the 1980s, the country was importing grain. They could not even feed themselves. Innovation died under bureaucratic control. Stage 3. Currency collapse. The ruble was functionally worthless. Even Soviet citizens didn't trust it, preferring dollars. The government had to pay for imports with gold and oil. By 1985, oil prices dropped, gold reserves were depleted, and they ran out of real money. Stage 4. Loss of empire. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989. The countries of Eastern Europe left immediately because the Soviet government was too broke and too weak to stop them. Stage 5. Complete collapse. December 26, 1991. The Soviet Union simply ceased to exist. It went from a nuclear superpower with 30,000 nuclear weapons to non-existence in just 900 days. This was collapse driven purely by internal economic failure. Now, we turn to the United States. Are we truly exceptional? Or are we just following the exact same sequence? The data points confirm the pattern. Stage 1. Military overextension. Check. The U.S. maintains over 750 military bases in 80 countries. We have troops in 150 countries. Our military budget is $850 billion annually, more than the next 10 countries combined. Yet, we are stretched thin, facing commitments in Taiwan, NATO, and the Persian Gulf simultaneously. Our equipment is aging, and we are strategically overextended. Stage 2. Currency debasement. Check. Since 1971, when the dollar was decoupled from gold, it became pure fiat currency. The printing press has run nonstop. Since 2020 alone, we have printed over $6 trillion. The result? The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1971. The mechanism is modern printing, but the outcome is precisely the same as Spain mixing copper into its silver. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Check. The U.S. now owes $36 trillion. This is 120% of our entire GDP. The debt is so large that interest payments alone are approaching $1 trillion per year, more than we spend on defense. We are borrowing to pay the interest on previous borrowing during peacetime. This is the catastrophic definition of a debt spiral. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. Check. America is no longer primarily a manufacturing nation. We design, finance, and consume. Our manufacturing base has been intentionally gutted and moved overseas. We import $800 billion more than we export annually. We are dependent on foreign supply chains for everything critical: medicine, steel, electronics, and even military components. Just like Spain, our wealth, dollars, flood straight out to pay for everything we consume. Stage 5, social decay. Check. Trust in institutions has hit all-time lows. Crime is spiking, homelessness is exploding, and drug overdoses kill 100,000 Americans annually. Political dysfunction is total. We can't agree, fix structural problems, or build infrastructure efficiently. The productive base is fracturing. We are firmly on stage 5 of 7. Both Britain and the Soviet Union reached stage 5 before their ultimate collapses. The sequence is locked in. Stage 6 is the fatal wound, loss of reserve currency status. This is the tipping point where the advantage of having the world's currency vanishes. It happens when allies start diversifying, trade moves to non-dollar currencies, and the immense stock of dollars held globally comes flooding back home because no one needs to hold them anymore. We are seeing the early signals right now. BRICS nations are developing alternatives, central banks are aggressively buying gold, and historic partners like Saudi Arabia are accepting yuan for oil. The cracks are forming. Stage 7 is collapse. History teaches us this is not a slow decline. It will be a sudden implosion. The Soviet Union demonstrated this speed, 900 days. When the reserve currency fails, the $36 trillion debt becomes immediately unmanageable, and the massive global military structure can no longer be funded. It collapses quickly and brutally. 3 empires failed this way. They all believed they were exceptional. They believed the rules didn't apply to them. And they were wrong every single time. We are telling ourselves the same lies right now. We're different. We have technology. We have the dollar. But the pattern doesn't care about exceptionalism. The pattern is mathematical. You cannot spend beyond your means forever. You cannot debase your currency without consequences. And you cannot avoid stage 6 and 7 once you've completed 1 through 5. Since 2020, we've accelerated every stage. We are not walking the path anymore. We are sprinting down it. The pattern says collapse is coming. It will be a sudden crisis, a currency crisis that triggers a debt crisis, that triggers a political crisis. Overnight, the superpower becomes a cautionary tale. If this opened your eyes to where we actually are in the sequence, you need to subscribe right now. Because when we hit stage 6 and 7, you'll want to understand what happened and why. The answers aren't hiding in the future, they are written in the past. Hit that button, and I'll show you where to look.